Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we are talking about the spell Investiture of Flame.
On fire.
That was
You're not
well
really on fire.
choreographed.
That was. I think we're getting more and more synced in our opening as far as doing a dumb pantomime of whatever the spell is sometimes. Investiture of Flame is sweet. This is from the so back whenever this edition first launched, they released the first adventure after Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat, the split books that should have been one book that has a whole controversy. It's pretty bad. They released Prince of the Apocalypse, which is even worse adventure, but it came with the Elemental Evoc Player Companion, which was free. You could get on the internet. It was PDF. It was a really cool idea, and I'm really sad they stopped doing these, especially because a lot of the content it would just be great to have and use at your tables and get excited about the adventures. In any case, it was sweet. This is one of the spells from it, and it's really bad. It's called Investiture of Flame. 6th level, 1 cast of an action. It got range of self, verbal, somatic components, concentration, which is a bummer, 10-minute duration. It's not really bad. It's very niche. So flames race across your body, shedding bright light in a 30-foot radius and dim light 30 feet beyond that. Flames don't harm you. Until the spell ends, you gain the following benefits. You are immune to fire damage and resistance to cold damage. Neat. Any creature that moves within 5 feet of you for the first time on its turn, or ends its turn there, takes a d10 fire damage. Okay, pretty cool. Any creature, or you can use your action to create a 15-foot long, 5-foot wide line, extending from you in a direction of your choice. Each creature makes a dex save in the area. A creature takes 48 fire damage on a failed save, or half as much on a success. And this is a Druid, Sorcerer, Warlock, Wizard spell, so 4 classes get this. What's your initial take?
Well, I'll tell you what my initial take is. We just talked about Tasha's otherworldly guise, and this gets you one of the important effects of that, but it has a duration 10 times as long.
And a real line of text, and an action that you actually want to use that isn't multi-attack. It's great. This pants is Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and this is definitely not that good.
Right.
Like, this is
Tasha's otherworldly guise.
Otherworldly guys. Yes, not the book, the spell.
Yeah, that's my first thought. Now, let's see. Druid, Sorcerer, Warlock, Wizard. I guess there's some builds that are gonna. I mean, anytime you don't have to use the within 5 feet of your thing. That's a nice bonus to have. If you want to go jump into a crowd and set people on fire, good for you. If you want to hang back, and it's also good. Just because you want to hang back doesn't mean they're not going to come running for you. So
True.
that's good to have. And I guess the other big thing is you get to shoot mini walls of fire. That's fun.
I think, yeah, that's really fun and definitely the most engaging part of the text. The thing that stands out to me is someone that would want to use the spell. I would just want that to be an action that I could always do. And you can get pretty close to cantrips, unfortunately, for this spell. But it's still 48 fire damage that you can, blast those, like hit 3 things with it, hit 2 things with it. It being a 15-foot line from you really does mean you want this on a character that is up in the thick of it. It's a very short distance. You want to be getting the 48 and the 1d10, I think, pretty consistently round after round to justify this thing getting cast over just using your cantrips. And if we're saying for a 6th level spell to be worth casting over cantrips, I'm nervous, right? That's not really where I want a spell to be. Its immunity to fire damage is going to be a little bit awkward. We'll touch on that in a second. What were you going to say?
Just like Tasha's otherworldly guys, I think you have to want all of the effects for this to be worth it. But in this case, I can picture more scenarios where someone would want all the effects.
I agree. I think there are real characters that will put this on their sheet, and all of a sudden, this makes sense in their build. They're a skirmish. Like, I think Abjurer Wizard stands out to me as you want to play defensively, you want to be around things, and you don't necessarily want to spend all of your actions proactively casting spells. You want to hold up shields, you want to hold up your absorb elements and things like that. This fits right into that build of, I sit in the middle of things, I absorb damage with my ward, I throw out lines of fire, I kill things around me for simply existing, stack a fire shield on top of this, because that doesn't take your concentration. You can just be a man on fire who kills people around him. That could just be the build. And that's pretty sweet. It's fairly niche still. Like, we're talking about, this is really pigeonholed into the frontline versions of these characters that aren't making weapon attacks, because you have to forgo your whole turn to get the lines of fire. And normally, if you're doing weapon attackers, like 13 Blade Warlocks, like Blade Singers, you probably want to be stabbing things. That's what your build's built to do. And forgoing your action is really hard in that case. Those characters already tend to struggle. They want to be casting spells and stabbing things. Juggling that's pretty high bar, and then adding on top of that an extra 48 line you're forgoing, like that can be difficult to justify using. So we're looking at like 6 subclasses in all of existence that can probably justify using this. More realistically, is less than that because the subclasses also have things they want to be doing differently. I think ultimately this reads really fun. And if you're the kind of player that maybe you're starting at upper levels and you're not that well versed at making a full build come together, maybe this is your first or second time playing it, Investiture of Flames just really says, take defensive spells like Shield and Fire Shield, and then play with Investiture of Flames whenever you have an encounter that's scary. And this gives you you don't have to worry about the other 40 things on your spell character sheet. You just care about your reactions, and you care about shooting lines of fire and lighting things around you on fire. And that can be fine. I think that's probably the most likely use case this actually has. Whereas if you were planning out a full build, I think you're going to have to work. It's going to be very difficult to find windows where Investiture of Flames is all you want to be doing.
I'm looking up I'm looking up Flaming Sphere right now. That's all right, that's a 1 minute concentration, and I'm looking at the damage on it. All right, 2d6 fire damage. All right, so yeah, this is significantly better than a second level spell. That's good. But I'm thinking if you want to play the fire wizard, is this that fantasy specifically, is this worth it then? Or just because you're gonna forgo some better spells just to have a fire effect?
So I think an important so for the fire wizard fantasy, there's sort of 2 routes that are diverging. There's the fire shield, everything around me and myself is on fire, or there is just everyone else is on fire, I'm good, and that's the fireball backline caster, right? That's the person that wants to blow things up from a mile away. And if we do the fireball test on this, it's, let's see, so 8d6 goes to 9, 10d6. We're comparing 10d6 damage versus 48. That's not great. 8d8 is closer. That's probably where we want to actually be. So you want to get 2 uses of this off. Granted, that's 2 actions. Fireball's half the actions for more damage. If you also count in, let's say, generously 3 things are taking the d10 fire damage at the start of their turns, then we're looking at comparable to an upcast fireball, assuming all those things go right. There are a lot, and you're talking about lower areas because this is only a 15-foot line where fireballs, the size of Kentucky. So you're in a circumstance where it's very obviously more damage in a better area most often with less risk just to do a fireball. That is, fireball's a 5 out of 5 spell. It's a banger.
Yeah.
Everything has to compete against it. Fireball also doesn't give you immunity to fire damage, resistance to cold damage, which if you're in an environment where immunity to fire damage is good, I have a hunch that dealing fire damage is probably not the most effective.
Another thing I was thinking. So it's not going to be super effective when you're facing off against creatures that are breathing fire on you, because they're probably resistant to fire damage or immune to it.
Outright immune, yeah.
Yeah. However, if I don't know, if you're going up against a wizard that has a reputation for being a bit of a firebug, then maybe.
There are also, if you're playing at a table with a DM that's playing their monsters more as characters, meaning they're using more spells, they're leaning heavier on existing magic items and things like that, incidental fire damage is not unheard of. Like, if you're going against enemy 5th level or higher casters, fireball is something you could be realistically worried about. It's still really niche. Like, that's not going to be most encounters, so you're not going to be able to consistently get that immunity to be worth anything. It leaves this in an environment where you're probably caring about the cold resistance more, because then you're doing fire damage to the cold frost giant things.
Wait, what cold resistance are we talking about?
Investiture of Flames gives you...
Oh, all right, resistance to cold damage.
Cold damage, too. Yeah, it gives you immunity to fire damage and resistance to cold damage. So that's where it is at its absolute best, is against cold spell casting things that you get within 5 feet of and are hitting a bunch with your lines of fire. We're really stretching to make this spell seem playable.
I got one. Is there any other spell that gives you total immunity to fire damage?
Not off the top of my head, I don't believe so. Probably. But this is a way to be totally immune to fire damage.
All right, so that alone could be worth it in some circumstances. If you have to go rescue the baby in the burning building, Or if you dropped your favorite uh, ring in a lava and you gotta go swimming.
Swimming through molten rock seems ill-advised regardless of if the burning is what's killing you. So we talked recently, like we mentioned in the beginning of this video, about Tasha's otherworldly guise. That's the
Otherworldly
one.
guys, yes.
And we didn't put a lot of merit into the immunity to poison or necrotic damage there. And I stand by that. I don't put a lot of I don't think when we're looking at characters and monsters that are dealing damage, if it is doing a large chunk of fire damage, it's normally alongside a large chunk of other damage. So this will often read like resistance to damage that creatures, resistance to damage dealt by creatures that deal fire damage is what this will often feel more like, because you're still getting your ass handed to you by their claws. You just don't really care that their claws are on fire. That's the meaningful difference between the immunity and resistance. It's still like upside. It's not nothing, but most things aren't doing fire damage. Most things are doing bludgeoning, slashing, or piercing damage. You have the rare cases where things are doing force damage, other things like that. The vast majority of things are dealing you fire damage, which means the fire damage immunity is... There aren't anything even that are doing pure fire damage. There's not like a silver bullet there. It's, like you mentioned, better out of combat exploration stuff. Maybe you go to the plane of fire and you have no other way to survive there because it's perpetually on fire. So you go, I'm fine. I've got Investiture of Flame. So for the next 10 minutes, I'm not bothered by this heat.
You could take a short rest.
You can either cast this 10 times or 6 times to take a short rest. So not really, but
set a barn on fire and go inside and take a rest.
Take a 10-minute break, sure.
Yeah.
You need an hour for a short rest.
Right. Okay.
Not so you don't. Minutes, yeah. You're not really resting in the flames. You can definitely if you want to do the full meme, play like a dogfolk person and get a yellow hat and then sit in a burning building and say this is fine. That'd be something you could conceivably do with this. Listen, I love this spell because I think it's a really fun fantasy. I love this spell because I think it is doing something novel. I think this probably could be a 4th level spell, and I'd be feeling similar to how I feel now, and it's a 6th level spell, and that makes me go, oh, that's a really tall order. It being concentration means, like, if you put this thing up, it wants you to be inside of people taking damage. It doesn't seem like it's going to last that long. So I ultimately...
The 10 minutes doesn't really feel like it matters.
If you're in the middle of everyone, you need... I think, like, again, there's a handful of subclasses at most that can consider even taking this. There's the cute thing where you could be a druid, like a moon druid. You cast Investiture of Flame on yourself, so you're on fire, and then you wild shape into like a T-Rex, and then you're a T-Rex on fire, and you can like breathe lines of 15-foot fire, and that seems kind of sweet because it's not casting a spell or anything, so you can just do those spell effects still. I'm assuming you can. I can't think of a reason why that doesn't work. Maybe I'm wrong and you can't, but that seems neat. Maybe non-moon druids have a little bit more fun of being on fire and running around as a T-Rex. It'll last a couple rounds, probably. Their druid forms tend to have a gigantic hit pool and like an AC of 11, though, so you're not going to keep this up for very long. I ultimately think, while it's neat in its words, it's going to be kind of vampiric touchy, and that the fantasy just isn't that good, and that I would go as far to say almost the point where you don't have any real circumstance where you can cast this and feel good about it. And if that's where we're at, and this is still a lot better than... It's probably just
Tasha's otherworldly guys, yeah. So, like, all right, for immunity to fire damage, we talked about it. It's if you need it, awesome, but you're probably not going to need it and want to cast the flame. So, yeah, the flame damage itself, the 4d8. How does that scale damage wise for a 6th level spell for that alone?
If we look at just Fireball,
Yeah.
Just Fireball starts at 86 as a 3rd level spell, so it does more damage than that
at
half the level. 11d6 is where we're at whenever you upcast it 3 times. So 11d6 versus 48. Like, I have the dice calculator up. I'll just tell you the numbers because I can't do it off the top of my head. 11d6 is an average of 38 damage, and 48 is an average of 18, so half. So you need to hit with it twice, and then you have the d10 damage around you. It's
and again the area. If you only got 1 or 2 guys and you can get them in a line, then the area doesn't come into play. So
then
But
there's going to be a lot of other higher damage. Like, we don't love Immolation, do we? And Immolation is a single target, big burning damage spell. I think it's on D&D Beyond for free, right?
I'm just saying, 10 minutes though. I mean, if spells are in short supply,
Yeah, I think that's like where this is supposed to go. I think that's a really tall order.
yeah,
I think
devil's
it's very niche. If you're in, and then you're in a situation where the last spells you're left with are your highest levels, and that seems not like it's going to happen.
Well, because you chose spells like this and Tasha's otherworldly guys.
Exactly.
They're just the ones you never want to use.
Yeah, you're like, I can just use my third level spells and be happier than this. Yeah. Also, I looked at Immolation. Immolation's not better than this. Immolation is 46 fire damage around, and it doesn't upscale. So, yeah, don't worry. Don't worry. This is better than Immolation, or close to as good as Immolation.
All right.
I think again, I think there can be some fun to be had where you have I cast Flame Shield on myself, I run in the middle of everyone screaming, and everyone around me burns to death. Sure. You're taking hits, so this is going down after 3 or 4 rounds. So you probably want like Warcaster on that build. You're probably the Abadur with the big ward with the temp HP. I'm really struggling to see other characters that can try and pull that off. Maybe War Mages can. That is very niche. I think that justifies this being a 1. I think there are so few characters that actually can take this. And like for the character that builds to this, it's like I do cantrip worth of damage to 2 people instead of 1 person. And it's just there's way better ways of using your spell slots, I think, realistically. I just don't think there's going to be enough real use cases where a character's going to cast this and be blown away by it outside of the fantasy.
This might be worthy of a 1, but going back to back against Tasha's otherworldly guys, I got to give this a 2.
All right, fair enough.
Well, yeah. Yeah, that's I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, that's my call. All right. What was this? This was Investiture of Flame.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, I think you're right. Hold on. I'm sorry.
Uh-oh.
Before we end, you've convinced me. This deserves a 2. I love it too much. Infinite Agnazir Scorcher. I love Agnazir Scorcher, and this is 10 minutes worth of Agnazir Scorchers, so I can't give that a 1. I'll give it a 2.
Yay! I convinced Sam. Whoa, that doesn't happen often. All right. Well, that was Investiture of Flame. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.